Welcome to the Navy SEAL Mindset. This is episode 028, and I am your host, William Branham. Welcome to the show. I'm a retired Navy SEAL. This is your first episode. Retired Navy SEAL, 26 years of service. I was a sniper instructor. I've led teams across Iraq and Afghanistan, up to 400 people at a time. And I got a lot of knowledge that this podcast is designed to share with you. Since retirement, I started a CBD company called Naked War Recovery, where I'm actually being sued right now. That I've probably talked about in previous podcasts for the word naked. So stupid, but anyway, it is what it is, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be sued. I get to be sued, and that's kind of cool. So I still have Naked Warrior Recovery, but I really focus on speaking, delivering the Navy SEAL mindset, the Get Naked mindset. And if you want to learn more about that, go to the website, the number 5sealsecrets.com, and put your information in there. Yes, I do ask for a phone number. I don't care if you give me your phone number or your friend's phone number. I don't care. Most people don't even know their own phone number anymore. Just go ahead and put your phone number in there, or 555-1212. I don't care. And email address, and then I'll email you a copy of what the Get Naked mindset is all about, or 5 SEAL Secrets. And I'm a business executive leadership coach / consultant. And I'm not sure, I think the last podcast I talked about how stupid titles were. When I first retired from the military, I started a consulting business helping companies navigate the military acquisition system. My last 3 years in the SEAL team headquarters, I went out and found $16 million of other people's money to solve problems and create technology that never existed before. And so I was going to use those contacts, those connections, that knowledge to help other companies navigate the military acquisition system, to maybe take their widget and, maybe it wasn't ready for prime time or wasn't ready for an operational unit. I could go and find research and development dollars that would help turn that widget into something that was, an operational capability for the military. And then, I, of course, would get paid for my part of that. But it was interesting, going back to, again, titles. People would not hire me because they did not like the word consultant. Everywhere I turned, consultants are criminals. Consultants get this, so they get paid, but we never get any benefit out of what they do. And so now I'm a coach, I'm a consultant. I don't care what you call me. I could have had any other title other than consultant, and I could have picked up all sorts of jobs. But because I called myself a consultant, people refused to hire me for doing exactly the same things that I was basically doing in the military, just re-engineering it, doing it for the company, not doing it for the military, but really doing it for the military because, the end user would benefit at the end of the day. But titles got in the way of that. So anyway, this is the Navy SEAL mindset. Again, I use the things that I learned in the SEAL teams, and I want to share those with you. And one of the things that I recently did was I flew to Africa, to Tanzania, went on a safari, and then turned around and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I learned a whole lot about that mountain. Apparently, I do succumb to peer pressure because I had no intention of climbing that mountain. But then a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, let's go do that. That'll be cool." And so I caved into his peer pressure. But that's good peer pressure that I cave into, not bad peer pressure. Anyway, here's a handful of lessons that I learned from climbing Kilimanjaro. If you don't know much about the mountain, I did not. Kilimanjaro, I believe, is the highest mountain in Africa. It is 19,300 feet, so the air gets thin up there, and I'll talk a little bit about the altitude in a little bit. It is the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, but Everest is part of a mountain range. Kilimanjaro is a freestanding mountain. It's actually an active volcano that's currently dormant. It is not extinct. I didn't know that prior to climbing it. And, as we were coming down the mountain, there were people going up that were planning on sleeping in the crater because it's a giant volcanic crater. So again, interesting, cool. And the more I kind of think about that and the prehistoricness of Africa and that mountain or that volcano, if you just think about the animals that are in Africa, giraffes and zebras and elephants, and they have to have some sort of prehistoric lineage to be as weird as they are, weirdly shaped, move the way they do, So anyway, it's kind of cool to think about those things, but I didn't know any of that prior to climbing it. Someone was just like, "Hey, let's go climb a mountain," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll go climb it with you." I had a better attitude than that, but I like to sort of play it down. So here are 5 lessons that I learned climbing Kilimanjaro. Number one was to have a plan. And I know that seems very, of course, you need to have a plan, but I want to talk about a plan in pretty much anything that you do. A plan basically gives you some direction. So I have some things in my life that are changing in my personal life, very big changes. And one of the things that I had to do is develop a plan on how to execute those things. Now I'm very good at doing things on the fly. I can pivot and change directions very quickly. But before I can do that, I need to have a plan so that I know the direction that I'm going, why I'm going that direction. A plan also gives me the ability to visualize where I'm going and what's going to happen when I get there. What does the end result look like? And I think a lot of us don't really focus on the end result. We're focusing on, what's going to happen next, like sort of an if then, if then. And so a plan is just really the bigger picture. Like what do you want it to look like? When I talk about commander's intent, what is the end result that we're looking for? And what are the things that we can do in the meantime to get us there? And so, a plan gives you the ability to visualize what is that outcome and what is it going to look like maybe on the way there. But a plan also gives you the ability it gives you something to deviate from. If you go into a situation without a plan, you don't know exactly which way to go. And I'll tell you, on this climb, I was always questioning the plan or I was challenging the plan. It was a 6-day round trip for us to get to the top and then get back down. And there were long stops along the way for us to acclimate to the altitude. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to sit around. I'm someone who's just like, let's just go get it done. Can we go do it in 5 days? Can we do it in 4 days? Can we do it in 3 days? I'm confident at this point I could do it in 3 days if I was smart about it and if I planned appropriately and did a lot of altitude work prior to showing up to Africa. I'm confident that I could have done it in 3 days. I don't know if I could do it in 2, for sure 3 with the right guides with me. But yeah, I was always challenging the plan. And I also, in that challenging, I forced our guides to sort of check themselves. I tried to summit the mountain twice. And so what it would have looked like is we would have gotten to base camp at 15,500 feet. The rest of the team would have taken a nap, and myself and one other guide would go up to the summit, hit it, turn around and come back down, and then turn around and do it again like an hour later. And I thought that was maybe just a little too much to bite off because I got the guide to be like, okay, let's go. If you're serious about it, we'll do it. But there wasn't enough value in it. Had we gotten to base camp sooner, I might have done it just to say I did it twice and did it in a certain amount of time. So I could watch sunset from up there and I could also watch sunrise from up there, 2 different trips. But, that kind of leads me into the next lesson that I learned is hiring a guide or a coach or whatever. I talked a little bit ago about I'm a coach/consultant and I didn't get work because of the title that I gave myself that I didn't really understand at the time. But us hiring these guides to take us up and down the mountain was critical because what a guide does or a coach or a consultant, whatever title you want to put on them, really they're someone who has the expertise that will make your adventure better. That will give you a better experience at the end of the day. So, and what I mean by that is, we could go, it's actually illegal to climb the mountain without a guide because you're paying into the economy and all this other stuff. But you're supporting, businesses there in Tanzania. But so therefore it is illegal. But what the guides did for us is they used their experience to make our experience better. We still had to do the work. We had to, hike up to each base camp or each camp. But you know what? They had food for us. They, gave us recommendations along the way. They guided us through hard to navigate areas. They did things for us that needed to be done to get us where we needed to go. They were critical for our success. I mean, I watched guides, I saw people that had no business on that mountain. And I saw guides like pushing them up, dragging them up the mountain, carrying them back down, carrying their water, doing all this other stuff, which I didn't really appreciate that was taking place. But I mean, it was what it was. And so, their job was really to get the tourists to the top of the mountain or back down. But our guides were, you know, as we were coming back down the mountain and back down to like, I think 12,500 feet. After we summited, we got back to our second base camp and there was no lodging for us. We were going to have to sleep outside and it was cold and we did not have the facilities to sleep outside. And so our guides went to work and they made sure that we got lodging that we were supposed to have, that we had reservations for, and a lot of things got messed up. And then our guides were like, we don't know where we're going to sleep. And they're not allowed to sleep in the same facilities that we are. So like we were giving them equipment, ground pads, whatever, so that they could go and sleep wherever they needed to sleep. They're like, oh, we're probably going to sleep on the kitchen floor. And that's just not okay because they're out there carrying more weight than we are, doing more work than we're doing. Because they knew the systems in place on the mountain, because they had been there many times, they had the network, they knew who to call and what to say. They were able to get us the lodging that we needed to get. They were able to get themselves the lodging that they needed to get, but they were also willing to take one for the team, making sure that we were taken care of, to make sure our experience was really good. So hiring a guide, coach, consultant, whatever it is critical. I mean, in my work now, I'm somewhat of a guide. I try very hard with my clients to not give them the answer. Although it's difficult sometimes because I'm like, it's right there in your face. But they don't see it a lot of times. And so it's my job to guide them into finding the answer themselves. My job, our guides didn't carry us up the mountain and carry us back down. They just guided us along the way, gave us the right path to take, helped us when we needed help. We still had to do the work. And so that's what I do with my clients. My clients still have to do the work. They have to go and execute the things that they have to execute. My job is just to help guide them around roadblocks that they may run into, or just, things that they're struggling with, whether it's a people problem, a personal problem, a business problem, a leadership problem, whatever it is. I'm there to help guide them around those obstacles so that they have a better experience in whatever it is that they're doing. So one of the things that I really dislike are in the service industry are when there's a professional client relationship and the professional is not helping the client solve the problem or get better, or where they can solve the problem. I've seen this in like sort of the mental health world where, that the therapist, their job is to help the client, but they're not really helping the client. They're making the client dependent on them. And I don't want my clients to depend on me. I want them to rely on me to help solve hard problems, but giving them the tools to go and solve their own problems. So enough about that. If you're going to go do something hard, hire a guide, hire a coach, someone to help get you there. Fitness. Fitness in my life, I make fitness a priority. I'm 50 years old now and I can run circles around my 40-year-old self being in the SEAL teams. I look better than I did in the SEAL teams. I say I can run circles around myself. I don't know if I actually could. I'm for sure as good as I was in the SEAL teams, maybe better. I'm not sure. I didn't do the things that I'm doing now in the SEAL teams. I did different hard things, but I'm not slowing down. I am broken. I am broken from 26 years of service. So therefore I have to prioritize fitness. I have to prioritize optimizing fitness. So I don't just go and kick my butt doing hard things, although I do that. I do that. I have to prioritize optimization of fitness. So one of my doctors, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, she has a podcast. She just wrote a book a little while ago. She says that skeletal muscle is the longevity organ. Basically what she's saying there is if you don't have lots of skeletal muscle, which decreases as you age, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And so what I try to do is I work on skeletal muscle every single day. Now I don't go, run 15 miles and lift 300 pounds at a time or 400 pounds. I do a lot of lightweight, high rep stuff just because of all the injuries I have. And I use that lightweight, high rep, those workouts to elevate me. So, for example, prior to climbing Kilimanjaro, I flew out to Colorado and climbed Pikes Peak because I'd done altitude before, 14,000 plus feet, and I struggled a lot. And so I'm like, I don't want that to happen to me in Kilimanjaro. So let's go and this was part of the plan. Go out to Pikes Peak, go out to Colorado Springs, climb Pikes Peak solo. And some of the things that I focused on were, I focused on my legs. I focused on how to climb, steep hills. I focused on my energy output, how much exertion I was putting out, and all the things that I thought I needed to do, how much water consumption that I needed to climb an even bigger mountain. And so when I was on Kilimanjaro, I did not struggle with altitude really at all. Outside of like a splitting headache, waking up from a nap at 15,500 feet prior, like an hour before, tackling the summit, I didn't struggle with altitude at all. I think at 17,500 feet, I had a little bit of shortness of breath, but outside of that, I was pretty good to go. I can't say that for everyone on the team. As a matter of fact, there's a buddy of mine that I climbed with because we were going a little bit slower, or he was going slower, and so I just stayed back with him. We actually started about 30 minutes before the main group, and man, altitude kicked his butt. I just read an Instagram post that he put out there. He was like, it was like COVID, but worse for him. I never had COVID, so I don't know what that was like, but he was like completely drained of energy. Like it was hard to breathe. He had, gnarly coughing fits, and he is an incredible athlete, but the altitude got him. I would say because he didn't prepare for the altitude, and on my fitness journey, I prepared for altitude to prepare for the higher altitudes of 19,000 plus feet. So I make fitness a priority in my life. So therefore, it doesn't matter if I'm climbing a 20,000 foot mountain, or if I'm, hiking the Grand Canyon, or if I'm swimming across the Hudson River, which I'm going to do later on this year in another month. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, or if I'm just going through life and I'm, or the 40 hours it took me to come from Tanzania all the way back to Hawaii. That was taxing. And if fitness was not a priority in my life, my recovery would be so much longer. So I would encourage everyone to make fitness a priority in their life, no matter what that fitness looks like. It could be just getting up, just drinking a gallon of water a day, going for a walk, doing, a handful of push-ups and sit-ups and squats, body weight exercises. That's all you need. And if you want to get even more optimally fit, start adding weights, lifting, I would say lighter weights, higher reps. And then as you progress, maybe adding heavier weights with lower reps. Fitness has to be a priority, walking, running, whatever it is for you. So I'm going to get off my soapbox there. Holy moly, I had no idea I was just going to pontificate so much. Number 4 is the emotional intelligence of doing hard things. And I don't think it's about doing hard things specifically. I think it's about emotional intelligence across the board. A lot of us like some sort of certainty in our life. And I'm going to tell you that there's no such thing as certainty. Certainty is an illusion. Again, I was talking to one of my coaching clients, and he was talking about some people in the organization that they don't like change because it disrupts their daily battle rhythm or their daily thing, and because they like the certainty of knowing like what time, what's going to happen when they show up to the office, what they need to do, and when they're going to go home. They like that certainty. Well, the organization is about to change. There's a lot of change that's going to happen in this organization or in his organization. So that certainty is definitely out the window. And so we're working on how to navigate that. But, on this climb, certainty could be something like, oh, well, the goal here is the peak of the mountain. And I'm going to tell you that the peak of the mountain is only the halfway point. You can get up the mountain, but you still got to turn around and come back down the mountain, which can be almost as hard or harder than going up the mountain. A lot of times coming downhill is a lot harder. It's more taxing on your body, on your legs, on your knees, on your back than the walk up or the hike up or the climb up. So focusing on the peak or the goal that you're setting for yourself, I would recommend focusing on being present. Where are you right now? A lot of times that peak can be overwhelming. That big audacious goal that you're looking for, it can be overwhelming. It can be so big. You're like, what? How can I ever get there? And so what you really should be focusing on, it's good to like look up and see it, but then put your head back down and then focus on the steps that you're taking. Focus on the breath that you're breathing. Like going up the mountain, the air became thinner. And so breathing became more work. It became more problematic. You had to take smaller steps. You had to be more conscious about what you were doing, more purposeful. You had to be more intentional with what you were doing and how you were doing it. And that came even more relevant coming back down the mountain. So interesting thing about climbing Kilimanjaro is you go through several, three or four different sort of eco zones. You start off in a rainforest and you go through the rainforest up to like, less vegetation. And then you end up on like, a moon landing, like there's no vegetation. And then you climb the mountain and you come back down and going through all those environments again in reverse. And so this time when we were coming down the mountain, it's day 6 and we're super tired and the path is not smooth, lots of boulders and rocks and great ways to twist your ankle and rip your knee out and really hurt yourself on the way down because you're being complacent and you're like, okay, we're almost done, we're almost done, we're almost done. I just want to be done with this. It was raining in the rainforest. Imagine that. Raining in the rainforest, so it was just mud everywhere. Super slippery. I slipped many times. I didn't use hiking poles very much on the way up, but I for sure use them on the way down because I think it's like 8 pounds of pressure per pole, per knee, something like that. But they saved my legs or my knees or my ankles many times. And so I had to be coming down the mountain through the rainforest in the mud became not only a physical challenge, it became a cerebral challenge as well. So I was mentally exhausted and physically exhausted by the time we got to the bottom. But that was part of that emotional intelligence. Don't focus on like the end result. Don't think that you're going to be done anytime soon. Focus on the next step. Focus on the next breath. Focus on what are you going to do to not get hurt going down the mountain. So you can have the end result in mind, but when you're on your way there, you need to be very present and very focused on being deliberate and intentional about what is your next step. What is your next breath? Where are you going to put your hand if you're climbing up or down or whatever it is? Okay, so there's 4. So we have a plan, make a plan. Number 2 is hire a guide. Number 3, make fitness a priority. Number 4 is really focus on that emotional intelligence. Not the goal at the end, it's being intentional about what you're doing to get goal. And then the last lesson is really go out and do hard things. I accidentally started doing these yearly challenges about 3 years ago when a buddy of mine was like, hey, let's go climb the Grand Teton. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. Let's go do that. And I didn't realize how hard that was going to be, nor did I realize the people that I was going with were going to be just in amazingly great shape for altitude. Now, I was in better shape than them in other ways, but at altitude, they just left me in the dirt, which, really kind of mentally prepared me for Kilimanjaro. So I did the Grand Teton. I do the swim across the Hudson River. This year, it's going to be August 10th, New York City. My book comes out the same day, August 10th, called Mission Ready. I'm a co-author in that book about building high-performing teams. And I talk about leadership through the lens of a gunfight. We can also call it gunfight leadership if you want. And maybe I'll do a whole episode or a podcast on that. But these yearly challenges, what they do is they keep me sharp. They keep my sword sharp. They keep me as a weapon sharp. Physically, mentally, emotionally, all the things that you need to do, because what they do, going and doing these really hard things, you have sort of this workup where you're preparing your body physically and mentally to go do it. But then when you go do this really hard thing, it is physically challenging, it is mentally challenging, and then it becomes emotionally challenging because you can't really plan for the emotional. piece of it, and emotions will hit you in different ways. Especially when you start pushing yourself farther than you thought you were going to have to. And you have to go into this dark place, this place of darkness where you find another gear that you never knew you had. And so every time I go and do these really hard things, and then I suffer and I find myself questioning, what am I doing here? Why did I do this? And really having to dig down, not only physically, but into my soul, into my heart. How big is my heart? How big of a desire do I have to complete this thing? And can I just stop feeling sorry for myself at any moment? The growth that I've had is doing these really hard things where I'm like, I feel so sorry for myself. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm mad. I hate the world. I hate everything. But when I get to the other side of that, even if it's just completing the challenge, I have another gear that I'm able to use for the next challenge and to use for life. I have this gear that I just didn't have before that I can use for life. Doesn't matter how hard life gets, how difficult things are, because I did these really difficult physical challenges that tested me physically, mentally, and emotionally. It doesn't matter how hard or how weird or how crazy life challenges bring you. You can always go back to this darkness that you went through that will help propel you to a new place where you actually want to go, or get you to the other side of this really hard thing that you're struggling with in life. Anyway, those were the five of the lessons I relearned climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Have a plan, hire a guide or a coach, make fitness a priority, really focus on that emotional intelligence, and go and do hard stuff. Go do yearly challenges. They will make you a better person at the end of the day, and they will prepare you for life. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode 028 of the Navy SEAL Mindset. You guys stay awesome. Don't forget to get naked, and I will talk to you soon. Hey, this is William Branham, retired Navy SEAL, 26 years of service, and I have a free gift for you. Go to 5SEALsecrets.com, the number 5, SEAL as in Navy SEAL, 5SEALsecrets.com. Go download your free copy of these 5 SEAL secrets, and I'll give you a secret. The secret is NAKED. NAKED is an acronym. Go over there and find out what it is. 5SEALsecrets.com, totally free. All you got to do is give me your name and email so I can send that to you, and it's all yours. Then you can start learning how to think like a Navy SEAL. Talk to you guys soon.